What's up, everybody? Welcome to Kuz's Corner College Football live stream here on a Thursday night. Decided to do a pop-up live stream here to talk about the news of the day, which, of course, is college football conference realignment. News has broken today. Apparently, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, and Clemson are rumored to be targeted by the SEC. This was in an article in SI.com. Apparently, former Georgia coach Jim Donnan was doing an interview, and he is the one who brought it up. And I'm going to pull the article up right now and kind of read it. And I'm joined, by the way, by Sam the Man and the Fan Addict. Sam, tell everybody where they can find you.
304 Athletics or 304 Podcast on Facebook and YouTube.
Awesome. And I've got his stuff. I've got everybody's stuff at the bottom of the screen there. Fan Addict, where can they find you at?
So yeah, man, it's the Fan Addict, man. YouTube is the Fan Addict, just like it says above my head and kind of covered up. Addict spelled like the attic in the top of your house. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Fan Addict Sports, talking college football, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys hopping on here real quick. I know it was kind of last minute notice, but as college realignment stuff unfolds, it seems like there's new news breaking, not only daily, almost hourly. It seems like anymore.
every day.
There's at least a rumor that comes out every hour anyway.
For real.
But I was actually not even planning on doing a live stream tonight, and then I read this news when I'm in a hotel room tonight, and I saw it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to talk about this because this would be. I mean, obviously, USC UCLA move shook everything up. But this is going to a whole nother level. I'm gonna start with you, Fan Addict. You're an SEC guy.
Yeah.
Well, first off, before I get to that, let me read the report to everybody, a little bit of the report. It says Coach Jim Donnan today was doing an interview, and he says, and this is on No Game Day, by the way, which is the Florida State SI site. It says, this is Jim Donnan. He says, what we're going towards, and the only thing I'll tell you about this show, when I tell you a sure thing, I back it. Sure thing, there are going to be at least 20-team conferences between the Big Ten and the SEC. Then he goes on to say he identifies 4 teams he expects to join the SEC in the near future: Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and North Carolina. The conference already has 16 members. The additions of Oklahoma, Texas, obviously, and then you add those 4, it would bring it to 20. He goes on to say Miami, Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina are going to be in the SEC pretty quick. North Carolina's basketball helps them a lot along those lines, but those 4 teams are going to be coming in here to go along with maybe a couple more on the West Coast. That's important too. SEC might be going west.
They need to if they're going to expand.
I agree, we'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm going to tell you who I think. We can talk about who I think he's referring to or who the teams may be. I think we all know. And then it says, obviously it says more. And then down here, there's more. He says, what we're going to see is 8 or 12 team playoff, which I think we already knew about.
Yep.
Then he says, right now ESPN's got that, but all of a sudden you've got 8 or 12 teams vying for that. Then he goes on to talk about neither conference is done expanding. Then he goes on to say, well, where's it at? Here it is. While sharing his thoughts, he mentioned programs such as Virginia, Pittsburgh, and Washington as feasible options for the Big Ten. Now, he didn't go as far as to say, bank on it like he did the other thing. But I would say, Jim, and I want to go to you, Fan Addict, because you're a Georgia fan. And I'm sure you know who Jim Donnan is, right?
Yes, sir. He was the coach.
Do you think he's got his finger on the pulse of college football?
Yeah, I think so. For the most part, I mean, he'd be spot on about the dogs and the SEC a lot. So I would assume that I'm pretty sure, man, he's been around college football for a long time. So I think he probably knows some people that can tell some people, you know what I mean? So
right.
if he heard some stuff through the grapevine, but honestly, I don't think we even have to have that kind of contact or whatever. I mean, it's almost like the writing's on the wall. Like we talked about on another podcast, you and I think it's going to 2 super conferences. I don't know about 20 teams. I think more so 24 teams in these conferences where it's like 48 overall. Like intermediate, It might be 20, but I think eventually it'd be like 24 teams SEC, Big Ten, whatever they're going to call themselves, AFC, NFC, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
12-team conference, 12-team playoff, things like that. And it'll get to the point where, automatic bids for conference champions will be a thing. It won't be, I think we'll eventually get away from the whole college football playoff committee. So I think he on to something. Clemson is definitely, they fit right in. That's definitely a no-brainer. Florida State as well. It's Florida State and South Georgia is like, right across the state line. North Carolina, I guess if you got to take an ACC team, I guess. You know what I'm saying? They haven't really been a lot in football. They bring a lot for basketball, but we already know football carries it when you're talking about money-wise. And in the out west teams, it only makes sense to go get Oregon.
Yep, I agree.
Well, Phil Knight, the money man, for Oregon, he already came out and said that he either wants to be in the Big Ten or the SEC. And Big Ten puts you in the waiting list because they're trying to get Notre Dame, which makes sense. But
right.
We'll take Oregon right off bat. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
yeah, and that's who I think they're. When he says out west, I'm sure that's who they're targeting.
Yeah.
And I've already read that Phil Knight is angling for. Phil Knight's been making calls trying to get Oregon into the Big Ten or the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, I'll come to you in a minute, Sam, but I want to touch on this comment real quick. It says Jeff Graham says SEC won't take Miami. I'm not sure why that is, Jeff.
They don't have AAU accreditation. I don't think
Well,
so.
then you're talking about Florida State and Florida and Miami. Like I think Florida's going to have a lot to say about who comes in the state of Florida. I think you got to make Florida happy. That's a big SEC school, and bringing Miami in as much as I think Miami's on such an upward trajectory right now. Bringing them in is not necessarily the best idea because all the NIL stuff going on in Miami. They're setting a precedence that I don't know that all the SEC schools, mainly I'm talking about Florida, is ready to hop on that train and compete with that.
Yeah,
right.
Just my personal opinion.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, Miami's a good brand. They always have been. I know they've been down a little bit the last few years in football, but they're still the U. They still bring a lot of attention. They still bring headlines. They still bring a passionate fan base, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't. The SEC. No disrespect. Because the Big 12 is no better, but the SEC's not really been one to. Now they have. I will say this: the SEC has. If you look at the last few teams they've added, for the most part, they've all been pretty good academic institutions. But in the past, with the exception of Vanderbilt and Florida, they've not really cared that much about academics. But maybe that's changing, and maybe they want North Carolina for their academic prowess.
Well, and that's why Virginia would make so much sense, even more than Miami, is because you bring in a really good basketball program, you bring in a football program that could really use the SEC dollars, but then you're bringing in an academic program that's second to none.
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. I just feel like if Virginia goes somewhere, I think they might go to the Big Ten. That's just a personal opinion, though. But I think some of what Sam said, like the whole Florida not wanting Miami, Florida, regardless of what people think of them right now, Florida has a big say. Like you say, they are big. Florida is a big football program. You know what I'm saying? They right there with Georgia on the whole cusp of being, blue blood program type deal. Mm-hmm. So they'll have a lot to say about whether or not they want Miami to come in if that goes that route.
Yeah. Coach, do you know would they have to have a majority vote or just a unanimous vote, or how would that work? Do you know?
I think it's a majority vote because now these are just rumors, but I don't think Texas A&M was happy about Texas coming, but it was a majority thing. So it was like,
right.
And what you gonna do about it? You the only one that don't really want it, but the rest of the schools did.
Yeah.
So I think once you, I'll be honest with you, man. If they leave it up to that, like presidents and athletic directors and things of that nature, if Alabama want them to come and Georgia want them to come, they're coming. It's that they the two money makers in Texas too, because Texas got money. But when you're talking about college revenue, they're always top 3 to 5 every year.
Right.
So if they say they want somebody, they're gonna have them. So
right. Yeah, and I think he mentioned Washington is going to the Big Ten. I think that's To me, what the Big Ten should go after Washington. If I'm the Big Ten, I'm going after Washington, Virginia, maybe even UNC if they don't go to the SEC. Because North Carolina and Virginia are both really good academic institutions. Washington's a good, and heck, I think they should add Stanford. I think the Big Ten should go after Stanford, honestly.
Yeah. I saw a comment that said something about Stanford over Oregon to the ACC, but I'm like, Stanford's more, like you say, if you're talking academics, Stanford fits more in the Big Ten than they do in the SEC. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
And Utah would be a good fit too in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
They would. If they don't,
I think Pac-12. I mean, the Big 12 look like they're trying to add some people, but I think at the end of the day, in a couple of years, it's gonna be all for naught.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and this is really what I believe about the Big 12, and people might disagree with me totally. You can add BYU, Houston, Cincinnati. You can add all those teams, but you cannot replace Oklahoma and Texas. Period. The only teams that they could have added, or that they could add now that would stabilize the conference, would be Oregon and Notre Dame, and that's not going to happen.
No.
So it's going to be in-state. It's going to be instability in the Big 12 from here moving forward. However it works out, that's just what's going to happen. And adding teams doesn't necessarily improve the quality of the product either. You're going to dilute it a little bit, even if you're adding some really good schools like BYU and Utah and teams like that. It's going to dilute it a little bit. And, I think the reports coming out about these teams joining the SEC, me personally, I think there's a lot of posturing going on. I think the Big Ten made a huge move. And I think that whoever makes the next move is going to determine whether I think there's going to be probably 3 conferences personally, but I think whoever makes the next move is going to determine the fate of the Pac-12 and the Pac-12 and the Big 12. If they were smart, the SEC should start looking at a path to California that runs through parts of the Big 12 and pulling a couple of those schools in on their way to Oregon. Because, the Big Ten, in my eyes, pulling in USC and UCLA, and now they're a coast-to-coast conference. As a player, that is so appealing, knowing that if I'm playing at Rutgers, I'm going to get to go to USC. I'm going to get to play at the Rose Bowl. I'm going to get to go coast to coast. And, that's very appealing. And I think that's something the SEC needs to address too.
I personally, I see what you're saying, but the SEC has such a brand. I don't think that they have to chase the West Coast. I think Oregon, with Nike and what they like, the kids love Oregon. And I'm looking at some of the comments. I'm kind of with Ken Foltz. I think academics plays a part some, but it's all about football and the money. And that's why I don't think the SEC really don't care, about that. If you're not bringing nothing football-wise, it don't even really matter, to be honest. And I think they can go get Oregon. I think that's about as much West Coast as they need, because we already killed California in recruiting. We recruit better than the California schools. So, I mean, everybody think Lincoln Riley going to bring USC, but you still got to win. At the end of the day, you still got to beat the SEC. And if we add Clemson and Oregon, it really doesn't matter what the Big Ten does. It still can't be a better conference than the SEC.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the SEC doesn't need to go west, but I don't see where it would hurt for them to go west. Unless
it won't hurt, but I just don't think they need to.
But do you think how important is it to the SEC to be in the South?
Very.
For the teams to be in the South.
I mean, I think it makes a difference, because regardless of the name, Ohio State probably has the biggest fan base ever because they got the biggest alumni base in, I think, all of college football. But outside of a couple of teams, nowhere is football more important than in the South. And I know people say that Big Ten went and got Rutgers so they could get the New York market and all that. But honestly, New Yorkers, unless they're transplants from the South, don't care about college football. They care about pro football and college basketball, but they really don't care about, because they don't have a team that's significant. Syracuse is, they had a good year every 10 years. But in the South, we eat, sleep, breathe. The only place that was bigger than the Southeast for football, the Southeastern Conference, was Texas, because Texas, Texas, I don't know. They just on a whole different level. And now we got that locked up with Texas A&M and Texas. So I just don't really think I think the SEC is cool with just being a southeastern thing and bringing. Like I say, Oregon is just the appeal of Nike fitting right in with the rest of the schools and Phil Knight. That's his personal opinion, of course.
Right. Now, Sam, Joey asked a question. I'll let you answer it first. Do y'all think that USC and UCLA went to the Big Ten with the understanding that Oregon and Washington cannot come?
I don't think so. I think that would be a hard commitment from the Big Ten to say, especially with Oregon, to say no, they will not come, because Oregon's a big brand. I mean, who you gonna? I mean, honestly, if you're going to bring in any other team into the Big Ten, if you're not looking at Oregon, you're silly. So I don't think that's necessarily an agreement. Maybe we're going to look elsewhere first. Maybe maybe that's the deal, but I don't think so at all.
I'm with Sam. I don't think it was a big deal, or that was the reason at all. I mean, in the Big Ten, like you say, if you're not looking at Oregon, well, I just don't think that makes sense at all. Like I say, if you're talking about recruiting and what the kids love, they love Oregon. Oregon started this whole trend on facilities and uniforms, and not being bad at football too. So I think you kind of be a fool if you try to say, well, we'll take UCLA, but we're not going to take Oregon. Like, I don't think football wise that makes sense, because UCLA ain't been good since Maurice Jones-Drew.
Well, and I think the question to ask there is, how much pull did USC have in getting UCLA into the Big Ten?
I think a lot.
Me too. I agree.
Because USC, even though they haven't been good, they're a brand. Like, USC is a brand in football regardless. And I think it might have been some, hey, you got to bring our little brother too, man.
Because, I mean, honestly, if it would have been USC and Oregon, man, that would have been huge.
That would have hit so much harder than USC and UCLA.
Here's what I think on that. UCLA, from what I'm hearing from multiple sources, including media from out west, is that UCLA was in the red big time. Their athletic program was in huge debt.
I don't doubt it.
They needed to be rescued.
I don't doubt it.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they went to USC and said, "Look, man, if you go, take us with you, because we need it."
That's what goes back to my point. Like, with all this moving around, academics matters. I mean, let's not forget these kids. They still go to school, but football pays for everything. You know what I'm saying, when it comes to sports. And if your football is not doing good, unless you're a South Carolina Gamecocks, the fans are going to stop coming, which means revenue's going to stop. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not a that the big networks want to put on TV, I think, with the SEC, I think schools are getting like over $40 million a year through TV deals. And then in the Pac-12, it's more like a $10 million. You can't sustain an athletic program like that. And then they're not making bowl games on the regular, so they're not getting the bowl money. So I can see that. If that's true, it doesn't surprise me not one bit.
Yeah. Let's switch gears real quick. Go to my next topic, which is the next. What teams will be next? If Miami, Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina go to the SEC. Now, what I did hear today, I was listening to Tony Caridi and his guys which is a West Virginia media, the West Virginia play-by-play guy. He has his own podcast with a couple other media members, and they were talking about conference realignment, and they said, and I didn't know this, but apparently if the ACC, they've got that granted rights agreement that goes all the way to 2036 that they're talking about, it's hard to get out of. If they get less than 10 teams, it's null and void. So this would put them down to 10. Yeah. So if one more team leaves for, say, the Big Ten, the ACC is screwed at that point. So that being said, do you guys think – what do you think will happen to the ACC? Do you think there's other ACC teams that will leave for the Big Ten, and who do you think they will be?
I would hope West Virginia could get into the Big Ten. I mean, that would be, and that's a hope. I don't think I'm not delusional about what I'm talking about. I would hope they could, but I mean, if I'm the Big Ten, man, I'm going for Louisville 100% because they're a high revenue school. I'm going for Pittsburgh, even though they can't sell out a home crowd. I would still go after that market. Probably Duke. That would give your basketball a little bit of an improvement. And then, if the Big 12 defuncts, you could pick up Kansas and Kansas State, and then your basketball would really pick up.
Right.
So that's kind of what I would look at.
Yeah, I'm with you on the ACC teams. Louisville and Pitt, those are my first two. Like you say, Louisville's high revenue is in the footprint, so you don't have to worry about a lot of that. Pittsburgh too. I mean, even though Pittsburgh can't really sell out home games, listen, the state of Pittsburgh, the state of what is it? My bad. The state of Pittsburgh loves football. So Pennsylvania, I'm sorry, the state of Pittsburgh. The state of Pennsylvania loves football. So I think that'll be great for them. West Virginia, I honestly would be trying to get out of the Big 12 because I think the Big 12 is gonna, crumble after a while. I know they're adding a lot of teams, talking about adding others, but none of those teams can carry them like Texas and Oklahoma was doing. So I think eventually it's just a pit stop and they'll crumble, or they'll have a lower level of football or a different division, whatever they want to call it. So if I was West Virginia, I'd be trying to get to the Big Ten too.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I would love to see West Virginia Big Ten or the SEC for that matter, but
yeah,
I just don't see. Number one, Big Ten has that AAU thing that they require.
That's
West Virginia doesn't have it. Pitt has it. Virginia has it. UNC has it. Duke has it. Washington has it. Oregon does not. Oregon does have it, I think. Hold on, I've got it. No, I think Oregon has it. But anyway, I thought I had it in front of me, but I don't. But West Virginia doesn't. So I don't think they would even have a chance to get, unless the Big Ten decides to waive that clause. I don't think they. And I think the only team they would waive it for would be Notre Dame at this point. Mm-hmm. So I don't think unless they get AAU accredited between now and then, I don't see it happening. I think West Virginia's only chance. Here's what I think. I want to touch his comment first. Mark Fain Jr., who's also a part of 304 Athletics, by the way, folks, and he's kind of the ACC guy. He's an huge ACC fan, but he says the only ACC teams that would jump would be Clemson, FSU, and Miami and Virginia Tech. I don't know that I agree with that, Mark, because the Big Ten is going to be paying about $100 million a year. If I'm any team in the ACC and I get invited to the Big Ten, I'm going. But
I think
maybe I'm wrong.
Virginia Tech can fit in either the Big Ten or the SEC. Just depends on what they want. I don't know if they'll have the choice to pick. I think schools like Clemson, I think Clemson, if both conferences was to ask Clemson to join, I think Clemson can go either one. You know what I'm saying? They're a big brand in football. I don't know the deal. I've seen a lot of comments saying Miami, SEC wouldn't take Miami. I don't know the backstory on that. I don't. But football wise, as a fan, I'd like to see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Are there any of those teams, Coach, that you wouldn't want to see in the SEC?
North Carolina.
You don't want to see North Carolina?
No.
Football wise, I mean, honestly, when I saw that, that's why I was like, oh, that report's got to be crap, because it's like out of all the teams I saw, I was North Carolina and Virginia, and I'm like, there's so many other teams you could pull in that would improve. I mean, why isn't Louisville in the discussion?
I was about to say, I'm with Sam on that one. Like, North Carolina is good in basketball. They're the blue blood, but let's not act like Louisville don't have national titles in basketball too. Plus, if the SEC want to do that, why not just go out to Louisville? That way you keep the Louisville, Kentucky in, rivalry in the same conference. Plus, Louisville's better in football on the regular. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just I'm with you on that one, Sam. I was like North Carolina, Virginia. I was like, I don't know if the SEC chasing them. Maybe they asked the SEC. I don't know.
I thought that was. I'm like you guys. I thought that I could see the other three easily.
Yeah,
being going. Yeah. I mean, those three have been rumored to be going for forever now.
A long time. Yeah.
I mean, if the report was Louisville, Virginia Tech, Miami, and Florida State, or Clemson and Florida State, then I'd be like, oh man, they're ripping the guts out. Like, boom, that's the guts. But it just, I don't know. Like, I'm just waiting. I kind of like to just sit back and wait to see what develops, because there's so much conjecture out there. Guys are just throwing things out, seeing where they stick. And I think one of the conversations that I'm waiting, and I don't want to jump the gun ahead on anything you got planned to talk about, but I think the one thing, like, as a college fan, we all have to look at is Notre Dame and how they're just kind of sitting still. And Notre Dame has such a big brand and they have so much pull that, if they try to go to 2 conferences and Notre Dame's not happy with that, there could be a 3rd conference emerge where, maybe Oregon's going to wait and Notre Dame's going to wait, and you take Oregon, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, and you build a conference around those 3 teams. You've got a fairly decent beginnings of a conference. Like, I think wherever Notre Dame, whenever they decide to start talking or actually looking, that's when it's really about to hit the fan.
Right. Yep. And if I'm not mistaken, their AD made a statement in an interview not long ago that they would eventually join a conference.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not sure. He also said the playoff would be expanded, and that they would eventually have 2 super conferences.
Yeah.
He said all that in an interview.
That's what I think is going anyway. But I think Notre Dame, at the end of the day, if I had to choose, they're going to end up in the Big Ten. It's, even though Notre Dame, like you said, Sam, Notre Dame has, in my mind, the biggest brand in college football. It's not about championships at this, like when you talking about Notre Dame, because everybody that's not a Notre Dame fan doesn't like Notre Dame. But when Notre Dame comes to your stadium, it's the biggest game of the year, easily in revenue and in TV, viewership, everything. When Notre Dame came to Athens, it was the biggest game that year. When Notre Dame went to Clemson, biggest game that year. It doesn't matter who you play when Notre Dame comes to town, it's the biggest thing. But with that said, I don't think they would, if they had the choice, they would want to come to the SEC, because you got a lot of big brands in the SEC if Clemson comes. You know what I'm saying? You got Clemson, Bama, Georgia, LSU, you know what I'm saying? Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Texas. These are all like huge brands, whereas in the Big Ten, you got some blue bloods, but like, I don't know if today Nebraska is considered a big brand. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just
Everybody real quick.
Ohio State and Michigan.
Right. Everybody real quick, if you don't mind, if you haven't yet, hit the like button for me. I forgot to remind you guys to do that. It helps get this video promoted more through YouTube. Just take a second and boop that button for me. And also, there's a lot of chats coming in. I'm not going to be able to see them all. So if you want to donate something and it'll give me a super chat, it'll highlight your chat and I'll be able to read it and see it easier. Somebody, Mike King, made a comment, says Nebraska doesn't have it either, but he's talking about AAU. Nebraska did have AAU when they were accepted into the Big Ten, but they lost it afterwards. So,
once you in, you in.
Yeah, that was a little bit, and we all know that probably they're not going to kick them out because it's Nebraska and they have a huge fan base.
Yep,
they're probably bringing a lot of revenue. So,
yep.
And that I saw a comment here that will kind of segue into my next topic, which is West Virginia in the Big 12. See if I can find the comment again. I think it was Kent Fultz. Yep, right here. He says, I predict WVU to the ACC after Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Miami go to the SEC. Well, first off, I think North Carolina's going to the SEC if they go. I think the SEC wants to get in the state of North Carolina. And I guess North Carolina, to them, is the best brand in the state. That's the only thing I can think of. But as far as West Virginia goes, here's my thoughts. Do we want – as a West Virginia fan, Sam, you can help me with this, and I'll let you chime in too, Coach, but you can give us the perspective from somebody on the outside. But do I want to be in the ACC anymore if all the best brands are gone? Sam?
Heck no. Because the thing is you're trading one unstable conference for another who just had its guts ripped out. At least the Big 12 tried to replace Oklahoma and Texas. They tried, and they did okay. But now you're looking at replacing. You don't replace Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, and Miami. You don't. You can throw West Virginia in there. I mean, who else are you going to bring in to replace them? That it fits that ACC geographic location, and you're not. I mean, now again, if Notre Dame decided they wanted to join the ACC, you're replacing Clemson, so to speak, but you're still deficient. So I think if these teams leave the ACC for the SEC, West Virginia needs to just wait.
Yeah.
That could end up biting them on the butt and costing them a chance to be in those super conferences. And as a West Virginia fan, I mean, and as a lot of fans are going to experience when that happens, you're going to be on the outside looking in, and it's going to suck. But I think that gives West Virginia the best opportunity to be on the inside looking out.
I agree. What do you think, Coach?
I think as a West Virginia fan, the only reason why you guys would want to go to the ACC if those other teams leave is for geographical reasons, because you want to actually go to the games. Other than that, like if you're not a person that goes to a lot of games every year, I don't think you should want. I mean, honestly, it's like trading in the Big 12. I mean, one conference for the same conference. Like you're leaving one that's almost on the last leg for another one that's almost on the last leg, and like I say, the only benefit there is you don't have to travel 1,200 miles every game when you're playing away. So for the people that want to go support, West Virginia on road games, then yeah. But other than that, nah. And I don't think Notre Dame would even consider the ACC if Clemson ain't there. I'll be honest with you. Like not in this day and age. Maybe, back when Florida State was that deal. But if Clemson leaves, I feel like the ACC is. It's kind of like Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12. So
I agree, and especially if Florida State and Miami go with them. I mean,
if either Florida State, Miami, like you got all the hard hitters leaving.
Yeah, that's your three big brands. No offense to Pitt or Syracuse or Boston College
it's just the truth.
They're not it, man.
No, and I mean it doesn't matter what basketball is because basketball brings in money, but it's peanuts compared to football money.
Thanks to Mark Fain Jr. for the $1.99 super chat. He says the ACC has to get Notre Dame to survive the chaos. I totally agree, Mark.
I agree, Mark, but they need to do it before Clemson decides to roll out.
Yeah,
and that's the best comment of the night. It has to happen before Clemson decides to leave. It's something where you call up Notre Dame and you say, what is it going to take? What's it going to take? And if all the ACC schools have to give up money to bring them in, whatever it takes, because you're fighting for your life. And if they don't start throwing some haymakers now, they're just going to sit back and it's going to happen and it's going to be too late.
Sam hit it on the head, man. Like if the ACC wants to survive, like they actually want to survive, there is only one choice, and it's to keep everybody they currently have and add Notre Dame. If they add Notre Dame, then I will agree with Sam. It'll be 3 conferences. It'll be the ACC. I'm pretty sure they'll go reach out and get some Pac-12 schools, maybe a Big 12 school here and there. But if they can get Notre Dame, then they can survive. If they don't get Notre Dame, I just don't see an ACC lasting if they don't get Notre Dame. They can go get all the teams they want, but all the major players are already in play somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Clemson, like I say, to save, if Clemson has a wandering eye, they need Notre Dame to get them back in line.
Yeah. I mean, the ACC. I mean, really, the ACC could throw a Hail Mary and go Notre Dame. I mean, and again, I'm going to throw West Virginia in there just because geographically, and it is a big brand. And they could go. We're going to shoot for 20. So who do you add? Notre Dame, West Virginia, Cincinnati, because you're going to start poaching the Big 12. You're going to go right after Cincinnati. And then I think you start working. I still think going coast to coast is going to be somewhat important. So, of course, you go after Oregon. And me personally, I would go after, Utah. And that would be the teams that I would start. That's where I would start. And, all it would take is for Notre Dame or Oregon to get on board, and then those pieces could start falling. But they've got to do something. If they don't do anything, the worst thing they can do is nothing, because it's going to be over if they don't do anything.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly.
Bryce Danielson says Clemson won't give up money to add Notre Dame to the ACC. I don't think they would have to unless they. I mean, Notre Dame would add a huge revenue boost to that conference.
Exactly.
So the only way they would lose money is if they did what Sam was talking about, and that is if all the other teams had to. If Notre Dame gets a bigger, maybe that's what he's referring to. Notre Dame getting a bigger piece of the pie. Mm-hmm. There might be some teams that don't like that, but I'll be honest with you, man. Well, I don't know. Unless Clemson just already knows they're in the SEC and doesn't care, then why would they? If Clemson's going to the SEC, then they're not going to want Notre Dame in, right?
No. And Notre Dame's not going to want to be in.
No.
That would be like you coach Notre Dame and they like, so what's Clemson doing? What's Florida State doing? Like, if you're not keeping the big dogs, then I'm not going to even consider it.
Yep. Big Dan T, thanks for the $9.99 super chat, man. Appreciate the support. It says, the ACC, besides Clemson, cannot get the recruits, at least not the big ones. As a Mountaineer, I have been against the ACC from day one. We can not go there if we want to be relevant.
Mm. Hey, man.
If
they a mouthful.
Yeah. If they lose Clemson, you're absolutely – I totally agree with you. I mean, yes, they would have Virginia Tech if they stay, but, Virginia Tech is – I put Virginia Tech and West Virginia pretty much as equals as far as brand. I don't know what you guys think, but Sam, would you agree with that?
As a Mountaineer fan, it's hard for me to talk about this because I went to the Virginia Tech spring game, and I'm a lifelong Hokie hater. If you know me, I never liked the Hokies.
Me too.
But Mark Fain drug me down there to Virginia Tech for the spring game, and I get it. Totally get it now. I understand the fan base. I understand the love for the school. I get it. So would I say that it's a bigger brand than West Virginia? No, I'd never say it, but I will say I get it. I totally get it. And it's a dangerous thing that it only took a stupid spring game for me to get it. That's all I'll say.
Well,
I'm not saying they're bigger than West Virginia, but I think they're equal or at least close.
Well, I guess it all depends on what you say brand. Like, of course, I don't know from a West Coast, so I'm here in South Carolina, but I can tell you from an SEC perspective, you're talking just fans. Like, if you say, okay, where you want to go watch a game, it's Virginia Tech all day. And it's, I don't know if that's the lure of the night game in Blacksburg. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I think West Virginia's fans are just as passionate as Virginia Tech fans, but I think Virginia Tech is still, of course, always still living off of Michael Vick, and Michael Vick is a Southern, he, as far as pro, he's known everywhere, and no matter where you see him, he's always Virginia Tech. I don't think West Virginia has that guy as big as Michael Vick to keep those, memories alive in the Southern states. That's if you're talking about brand that way. But in the West Coast, it could be totally different because y'all play in the Big 12, so they could see West Virginia as a bigger brand than Virginia Tech because they don't. Virginia Tech, do they ever go out west to play anybody? So.
Well, and I'll tell you something I did notice. I guess this was my big takeaway from the Virginia Tech, and it was just the spring game, guys. At the Virginia Tech spring game, Enter Sandman, you would have thought the roof was going to come off that. And I'm just talking the spring game. This is the beginning of the game. You would have thought the roof was going to blow off the whole place at the spring game. The most exciting thing that happens at Mountaineer Fields happens at the end of the game when they win and they play country roads. And it's one of the greatest things you can witness in college football. But one happens at the beginning of the game, one happens at the end of the game. And the whole environment from the beginning of that Virginia Tech game just took on a different kind of aura for me. It was pretty stinking electric. As much as I hate to say that.
I'm with you. It pains me to even say that they're equals to us, but I'm just trying to be objective.
I think in the world of college football as it stands in 2022, I think like Koo said, I think they are equal. Like I say, when you're looking at it from a fan perspective, just going to the game, it matters. That things like Enter Sandman matters. You know what I'm saying? But as far as like in the world of college football, I think they're just right there.
Yeah. So I think as far as West Virginia goes, I think West Virginia would be better off for now anyway, staying unless they can get in the SEC, which the only way I see West Virginia getting in the SEC is if they go to 24 teams. Then maybe we can get in.
I think eventually that's gonna. I'm not saying this next move is gonna be that, but I think it's on its way to 24 teams, SEC, Big Ten.
Because if Pitt goes to the Big and if Pitt goes to the Big Ten, I think honestly, here's what if West Virginia can get in it, they need Pitt to go to the Big Ten.
Yep.
And I don't know, they might well take us over Pitt anyway. I mean, to be honest with you, I think we're a bigger brand than Pitt. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we have a better history than Pitt. We bring in more revenue than Pitt. Pitt's fans don't even go to games, man.
Yeah, they don't.
So I think and a lot of that could be because they're a pro sports town.
Hey, shout out to the Pitt fans though. They show up on my channel anytime I
do
a video.
I've got a couple of Pitt fans that watch my channel.
Yeah, like
Talk is Pitt, John Waffle, H2P. But my point is, and of course, obviously I hate Pitt, but just trying to be objective. I do think we're a bigger brand than them. Maybe I'm biased. I don't know. But that being said, if the SEC wants the Pittsburgh market, they're going to assume that Pittsburgh will give them the Pittsburgh market, and that's not necessarily true. But they would assume that. That's why if Pitt goes to the Big Ten, then that would open the door possibly for West Virginia to get in the SEC. If SEC wants to get in a new market, that's how I look at it anyway.
Well, and West Virginia fits the SEC mentality, I think, better than anybody else. Like the fan base is we're not the biggest fan base, and we don't have the most money, but it's a pretty rabid fan base, and all we have in West Virginia college wise is West Virginia football. So
right,
as far as culture wise, I think we fit better in the SEC. But do we want to go into the SEC and be? I don't think we'd be a bottom feeder team, but we'd be exactly what we've always been as a middle tier team, fighting for recruits, just like we always have been.
Right. And I'm actually getting ready I actually had a video prepared I was going to work on tonight before I decided to do this about West Virginia going to the SEC. Because there's been some West Virginia media people saying it's a bad idea. And I'm like, are you out of your freaking mind? So
did they
he thinks it would be a bad idea for West Virginia to go to the SEC, which I think is ludicrous.
Did they give a reason why they think it's a bad idea?
Because he don't think we could compete.
Oh, okay.
And he's a West Virginia media guy. But anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm going to rebut his. And I respect the guy. I like the guy. So I'm not throwing shade. I just disagree with his opinion. But I just think it's ludicrous. I mean, even like Sam said, middle of the pack, we're that now. So I'd rather make $100 million and be middle of the pack.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. That's the thing, though. West Virginia and the Big East, when they were independents, they were in the middle of the pack. The Big East, middle of the pack. Big 12, middle of the pack. It's what they are. Now, it doesn't mean that every 8 to 10 years they don't put together a team that can put some fear in the teams they play and actually give them a shot at climbing out of the middle. But I mean, some schools, that's just where they are and that's where they're going to be. And as a fan, it's a hard pill to swallow, but it is what it is.
So let me ask y'all, since y'all West Virginia guys, I know you say y'all don't have that kind of money, but if you did have the money, is the administration willing to put that into, a new stadium, upgrade stadium, all that stuff?
Yes.
Absolutely.
They just did a $50 million upgrade to the players' facility, which we were we had the worst. We literally had the worst facilities in the Big 12, even worse than Kansas, up until about 2 or 3 years ago. And I honestly think,
did he freeze?
I don't know, but they did a $50 million renovation to the players' facility, and then a couple years before that, they renovated the stadium, expanded the concourses. And Sam, have you been there since they done that?
No, but
It's
I'm going to try to go up this year. Definitely want to see all that.
it is it's not. I mean, it's definitely an upgrade. I mean, there's a lot more room there. They put these little areas off to the side where people can go stand and hang out and talk, and you're not in everybody's way. They added more bathrooms, more concession stands. I mean, it's a lot better fan experience now than it was before. Didn't add any seats or anything. They just added. They wanted to improve the fan experience at the game. I think that was their number one priority. Sean Esquire says the best football school in the Big 12 is Baylor. I'm not sure why no one's talking about that. Is that strictly about fan base and logo? Baylor is the best football school now. I don't know that they're the best football school over time. I mean, that to me, that's having, and I agree with you. They are the best now, but I would put Oklahoma State and West Virginia as the best historically.
Yeah, I'd agree with Coos on that totally. With Oklahoma and Texas out of the argument, Oklahoma State is the best team in the Big 12. Period. I think. Baylor has its ups and downs. There's a lot of shade on Baylor for some of the things that's gone on down there. That if you aren't familiar with the Texas market, which I've heard a lot of things from buddies in Oklahoma about some of the things that goes on at Baylor. There's a lot of shady things that go on down there.
Oh, really?
And I think that's part of the problem. But yeah, I agree with Coos totally.
Yeah. I like Baylor. I have a lot of respect for Baylor. I love they have arguably one of the best presidents in all of universities in Linda Livingstone. Their AD Mac Rhodes is a superstar. They're doing a phenomenal job. Dave Aranda might end up being the best coach Baylor has ever had at the end of the day. I love what he's doing. Their recruiting is off the chain right now. So I think they're the best football today, but I'm not going to go as far as to say they're the best football in the Big 12 over.
I think
overall.
They're the best. I think they're the best football team currently, but I think
Right.
Oklahoma State is the bigger football brand. But Baylor brings that all around sports thing because they're good in a lot of sports.
Right. I mean, up until a few years ago, their football team was trash, to be honest with
True.
you.
Until Matt
RG3 put them on the map. I mean, he did. They were until he got there. They were garbage. They were arguably the worst football team in the country. They were Kansas at one time.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if people realize that or not.
I remember that.
And then they had a couple down seasons even after RG3 left, and then they got back good. They started winning again, and then they had that whole scandal thing.
Yep.
So then they had another bad year. So I mean, they've had some ups and downs, but if they can keep their coach, if they can keep Dave Aranda around for a while, they're going to be really good. Probably for a long time, honestly. I like Baylor. Baylor might be either my second or third favorite Big 12 team. I like Oklahoma State too, just because I like Mike Gundy, but I have a lot of respect for Mike Gundy. He's probably my – obviously, I got to say Neil Brown's my favorite coach, but Mike Gundy's probably my second.
There's a comment down here, Bryce Danielson.
Yeah.
I'm a Clemson guy, and I feel like South Carolina has more traction than WVU. That is a very astute comment because I agree with you at the moment.
I do too. And
traction as far as being a good football program team.
Yeah.
Well, I think more so as in what people like the hype that's being built around it at the current moment. You know what I'm saying? Like I think Shane Beamer, his last name, did a lot to bring it in. Mm-hmm. They're in the SEC, which helps them. Like if South Carolina was in the Big 12 along with West Virginia, I don't know if that statement would be true. But because they're in the SEC, they definitely have one of the most, if not the most loyal fan base in college football. Like, and games at South Carolina it's kind of like what Sam was saying about Inner Sandman, at Virginia Tech. It's the same way at South Carolina. So.
Oh, and I don't even disagree with it, even though I'm a West Virginia fan. I mean, the hype around South Carolina right now is real. I mean, I see it myself.
So traction like that, yeah, but being a better team, I think it's a coin flip. If y'all played this year, I think it's a coin flip. I don't know who would win.
Well, I think South Carolina, I think they've done a lot of flying under the radar.
Mhm.
I think, a lot of people are still sleeping on Spencer Rattler, and I'm not going to do that because he was a Heisman Trophy favorite for a reason, and the NIL hit, and he kind of crapped the bed, and all that happened. But there was a reason why he was that, and I think, I don't know, I think they're going to be a lot better this year and the next couple of years than people think.
Yeah. I want to address this comment by Stickman83. He says, and I hope I pronounced your name right. Just saw the title for the video. The SEC doesn't call schools call the SEC, so there's no rating going on, folks. It's a title, man. Don't get too bent out of shape about it. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. If our title's not exciting, nobody clicks on the video. So don't.
That's true.
Don't read too much into it. Don't get your panties in a wad. Everybody knows how good the SEC is. We don't need y'all to tell us. We actually get tired of hearing it, to be honest.
That's one of those little bugs. But it's
look,
one of them bugs that gets in your head, man. And
listen, man, I want to tell y'all something, man. Like, don't believe the hype. Everybody in the SEC is not an SEC homer. I'm gonna tell you what, nothing pleases me more on Saturdays than to watch Florida lose.
Hey, Coach, I'm gonna be totally transparent with you. Us non-SEC people, I've always gotten sick of hearing about the SEC. But if our team had a chance to go, we would go in a second. So
yeah,
a lot of it is probably jealousy. I'm not gonna lie.
we hate you because we ain't you, and that's all it is. And if anybody out there disagrees with what I just said, you're lying to yourself. Ohio State, Big Ten teams, I'm telling the truth. If the SEC called you up today, you'd be gone tomorrow. And
I think, and what a lot of fans, that don't like the whole SEC just means more. They just don't realize it started with the fans. Like, fans in the Southeast and the Southeastern states. I ain't gonna say they love football. They die without football. It's crazy like that. That's why Texas and Oklahoma fit right in. And it's like, if other conferences took that again, I don't think Northwestern fans, they like football, but they're like, whatever. What I'm saying? Like South Carolina almost had had to come to legislative blows because they couldn't play Clemson in the COVID year. You gotta have football in the South. It's not a question.
Yeah. Thanks for answering my question. I'd agree about being the best, but only right now. This is Sean Esquire, by the way. Long term, I guess we'll have to see. Thanks again. You're welcome, Sean. Thanks for being on here, man.
Yeah, I like Baylor. Like I said, I think their sports program is the best in the Big 12 overall. They're good in track. Yeah.
I will say, back in, I think it was 2007, 2008, I went and watched West Virginia play the Gator Bowl down in Jacksonville. And that was the first taste of kind of that Southern football-esque. It really is different. It's totally different. The people down that way, West Virginia, they love West Virginia people down there. And I mean, it was a party and it was a good time. The wildest games I've been to at Morgantown don't hold a candle to what I experienced at the Gator Bowl. It's just the Gator Bowl. So, I mean, I can't imagine going to, the big bowl games down there.
Right.
Hey, I went to Baton Rouge the year West Virginia played LSU.
Ooh.
Dude, I'm telling you. I have never been treated I've never been treated better in my life than the people at LSU treated us. They thanked me for coming and shook my hand. I got invited to I don't know how many tailgate parties, got offered beer by everybody I walked by. I mean, it was just.
That's the thing. It's yes, we definitely care about winning. That's first and foremost. But it's not college football season if you can't tailgate, baby. So it's and LSU is one of, if not the best tailgate in college football.
Oh man, and I was very impressed with the people down there. The atmosphere was great. The game time, the noise was. I mean, it was sold out, which I thought I took that as a compliment that they were sold out to see West Virginia.
Yeah.
That showed that they respected. I mean, LSU probably sells every game out, so I'm probably kidding myself. But still, I felt like these people respected West Virginia enough to come and watch the game, and it was so friggin' loud that Geno Smith lined up under the guard one time. because he just couldn't. He was like, I think it was his sophomore year or junior year, and he was just, dude, you could tell he had never seen anything like that in his life.
Yeah,
He had to call timeout. It was
it's
crazy. You couldn't even hear yourself think in there.
It's different, man. I'm telling you.
Stickman, we don't wear panties and we don't have to brag. Then he said it was a joke. I know it was, man. I was joking myself. Just I was playing along with you, man.
He only said that because you're wearing a Steelers shirt.
Me?
No, Stickman.
You said that because he's wearing a Steelers shirt. I was making another joke.
Oh, he's wearing Steelers. I didn't even see
Yeah.
Sorry, that went over my head.
Yeah.
All right.
There's some good comments coming in here.
Yeah,
man.
I like it. Let's see if I can get to them.
Oh, Sean Esquire, the guy that he graduated from Baylor.
He did what now?
He graduated from Baylor. He put it in the comments.
Oh, did he? Cool.
Yeah. He said he got it. He said he graduated in '99. Look at Sean being my age. 99. I was that was my second to last year in Athens. I was there when Kirby was there. So.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, he finished in '97. So he was I think Kirby was a sophomore when I got to school.
Okay. I got you. You said he finished in '97.
Yeah. Kirby was in the class of 1993, and which means he played his first year. I think he was on the team. I don't think he played in '93. My freshman year was '95.
Did you play?
No. I tried. I was a basketball guy.
Okay, but you are a Georgia alum.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
Go Dogs.
UNC is not going to the SEC without Duke basketball. It's $100 million. Any school that would turn that down is an idiot, in my opinion. Unless you're in the Big Ten. Any school that's not in the SEC or Big Ten that turns down an offer to go is insane, in my opinion. Why would you?
Well, here's the thing. Let's play devil's advocate on that.
Unless you're Notre Dame.
For 1 second.
Yeah,
play devil's advocate for a second, though.
Go for it.
You look at UNC and Duke. They're two very basketball-centric schools.
Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods, totally. The blue blood of the blue blood. They're both, schools that turn out, doctors and all of that. They're medical schools, and it's all, the education that you get. Throw Virginia in there too. Like the educations that go on there are very different than anywhere else.
Right.
Getting into $100 million football deal may not be something they're interested in. Settling in, because if you have tier 1 schools, it's going to be, say, that top 48, and then you have top tier 2, they may be perfectly happy being one of those tier 2 schools because they get to keep their basketball, they get to keep their football, but what they really focus on is the education. That may be something that you do run into with a few schools out there.
Yeah,
I could definitely see. That's a good point, Sam. I could definitely see some of them schools football ain't all that for us, dog.
And I could see Stanford being one of those schools as well.
I think
Absolutely.
Stanford and Duke for sure say that. You know what I'm saying? Because Duke, man, I don't know if y'all ever been to Duke. It's one of the prettiest campuses in America, but the football, they just, hey man, it's something to do on Saturdays. We're just biding time until end of October, beginning of November when Coach K Coach K Court is packed. So
yeah. Stickman says, first time here and love the setup, fellas. I will be regular. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
All right, quick. Can I ask Stickman something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Stickman, you a South Carolina fan? I know you're a Pittsburgh fan. My nephew's a Pittsburgh fan, Steelers, that is. But in college, are you a South Carolina fan? I saw you say something about South Carolina.
See, I saw Salt of the Earth says the only way the SEC and Big Ten can become super conferences is the SEC has to implode. And Salt of the Earth, I don't know if you missed the first part of the live stream, but that's basically there's a report out that Miami, Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina might be going to the SEC. So that would be first step of implosion.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have 10 teams left at that point, but there's also rumors that Pitt and Virginia could look at the Big Ten. So the ACC could very well implode, just like the Pac-12 and heck, the Big. What would be ironic is that at the end of the day, the Big 12 could end up being the third super conference. Wouldn't that be crazy?
It could.
I mean, they may have done just enough. To keep it alive. I mean,
Bob Bowlesby could go from zero to hero, right?
Well, think about this, guys. Say those teams leave for the SEC tomorrow, and the next move is going to be to the Big 12. Who does the Big 12 specifically target? Mm-hmm. Who do they go after next?
My opinion
out of the ACC,
out of ACC or the Pac-12.
Well, I mean, obviously,
I'm being realistic. Let's leave Notre Dame and Oregon out of that discussion.
You don't think Oregon? Well, yeah, you're probably right.
I think if Clemson and Florida State go to the SEC and Notre Dame is on the fringe of going to the Big Ten, I don't know if Big 12 can do anything to save them from not being the outside looking in. You just don't have enough star power. I just don't think so. I mean, there'll still be a conference like ACC can try to hold on, but it'll be like, what it is now, Power 5, Group of 5. It'll be Power 2, Group of the rest.
Well, but I heard something today and it made sense, and I hadn't heard anybody talk about this, and I actually heard two different. I was on the road a long time today, so I listened to multiple podcasts, and a couple different people brought this up. You've got 65 Power 5 teams right now, counting Notre Dame.
Yep.
If you have two super conferences of say 24 teams apiece, that's 48 teams, right?
Yep.
And who's maybe they don't even get to 24, maybe they whatever. But let's just say they do. You got 48 teams. That leaves what? 17 more teams, 16 more teams, whatever.
17, 65, 17.
That's a lot of teams.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of money that the TV networks will be leaving on the table if they don't put those teams on television.
But if you start listening, Kuz, if you start naming all those teams, if they go to 48, like I actually looked at it, and from a football perspective, who would make the cut and who wouldn't. That's what I was going to see if we wanted to talk about. And the teams that wouldn't make the cut, I don't know if the TV networks would really care because all the revenue they really can get would be in the two power conferences.
But here's the thing: you're keeping out some very. Say West Virginia gets left out of the equation.
Okay.
Am I going to be motivated to turn my TV on and watch Alabama and USC play each other when my team got left out? Probably not.
No.
And you're going to have 17 fan bases who feel that way. They're not going to watch it anymore. That's going to hurt revenue.
West Virginia is unique in that perspective because you're the only Power 5 school in West Virginia. But if Cal says we ain't watching football because we ain't got it, we already got the California people. We got USC. We don't need anybody else in California. That's what the TV networks would say. It's like we got Oklahoma. If Oklahoma State, I don't think they would get left out. I think they would be in. But let's say they did. We already got Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a bigger football brand, so we already got people in. We already got the market.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, you got teams like Washington State. That's a big market that we would be leaving out. But is it enough to say let's do a deal with a conference because we want the Seattle market? I personally don't think so because, like I said, the other big brands just make up for all of that. Texas, we got it on lock. California, we got it on lock. Georgia, Florida, Big Ten would have New York. Like I say, I don't think they really watch college football like that. But with what the SEC doesn't have, the Big Ten has. So I don't know.
But, I mean, I just don't. If you disenfranchise all those fan bases, it's gonna make them. They're just not going to care as much. I mean, it's just that simple.
But they're not going to care that we don't. They're not going to care.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think ESPN would care if ESPN got all the teams that you and I and Sam have talked about today. I don't care. I don't think they care. I love West Virginia football. I'm a college football fan, but I don't really think they would care that West Virginians aren't watching football. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I get it. I'm just trying
because they picked up so many other big markets. You know what I'm saying? So,
but those big markets don't necessarily watch games anyway. That's what's so baffling about this thing. I mean, Rutgers has terrible TV numbers.
yeah.
Nobody's
New
watching
York,
football in Rutgers, so why do they want Rutgers?
honestly, I don't know.
That's what I'm
Well, I
saying.
mean, but the reason they make it is because they're already in. Like, I mean, that's just the luck of it.
But
I
they
mean,
took them. I'm in last expansion, but
Yeah,
anyway.
I'm with you, Kuz. I don't know why they took him in the first place. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
I mean, I know academics probably played a role because the Big Ten is
yeah.
really big on academics. I get it, and Rutgers is a great academic school.
So, but to
I
your
don't
point,
know.
Kuz, to your point, like if West Virginia was to get left out, outside of West Virginia, because like I said, you're the only Power 5 in the state.
Uh-huh.
What other team is in that unique spot that they're the only Power 5 in their state and they might get left out outside of Kansas and Kansas State? But are we really getting a lot of TV ratings from Kansas and Kansas State?
Not in football. Basketball, you would. I mean, Kansas brings valuable basketball.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else has only one team.
I think West Virginia is unique in that.
I mean, you could compare us to Hawaii. Who watches Hawaii football? That's all they got.
But
Nobody
West
cares.
Virginia, that's what I'm saying. So you lose out on West Virginia. That's a loss. We're gonna chop it up. That's a loss. But maybe we look to add West Virginia and then we don't really care about them other. Somebody else doesn't make it. Maybe they find a way to kick a Rutgers out or something and take a West Virginia. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think
Louisiana's only got one.
Well, and they would be in.
So I spent that entire time trying to think of a state. I wasn't listening to a word you were saying because I was too busy trying to figure it out.
But if you really think about it, though, 3 20-team conferences would leave the least amount of teams floundering. I mean, like in the perfect world, they find a way to bring them all in, and then nobody has to do it. But then the conversation we're not having, or we haven't had yet, is the ruling body of the FBS, the NCAA. They're on their way out too, and they just don't see it yet.
Yeah, they are.
Because they're not going to keep. Once all this starts happening, the NCAA is going to be out. So why doesn't the NCAA reform for that tier 2 bunch of schools? They're going to have to do something to keep some sort of regulatory power. They will do something. But, I mean, I think there's going to be more than just, it's going to be tier 1 football, tier 2 football, and then you're going to drop down into your D2 and so forth.
Yeah. Do you think
West Virginia is just right on that cusp?
We're when this whole thing first started, when this whole UCLA USC thing broke, and then you started hearing rumors about the Big 12 adding these schools, dude, I was excited. I was like, this is the more chaos, the better for us, right? But then the more reports I read, and every time I see a new story, West Virginia is never in the freaking article. Okay. And every time that happens, I get more and more concerned because I'm gonna be honest with you. If we get left out, I'm gonna be freaking heartbroken. I might cry. Okay. That's how much I probably won't, but I would probably come close. But that's how much West Virginia football means to me. West Virginia sports means to me. And I would still, I'm still going to watch them every Saturday probably, even if they're not in the Power 2 or Power 3 or whatever. I think if there's a Power 3, we're in for sure.
Yeah.
But if there's a Power 2, we might not. But I told somebody asked me the other day, I think it was on the live stream I was on with you, at what point does West Virginia get left out?
Yeah.
I think if it goes to around 48, 50 teams, I think we get in. But if it doesn't, I don't think we get in. That doesn't mean I think we're the 51st best team. I think we're definitely we're a top 40 program for sure, maybe top 30 or 35. You could argue, depending on what metrics you're looking at. Mm-hmm. But the problem is there's so many teams that are already grandfathered in, like we were talking about earlier, like the Rutgers, the Vanderbilts, the schools that are already in these conferences. Exactly. They're not going to kick them out, I don't think.
You'll be
I think
competing.
60.
What's that?
Sorry.
Okay, my bad. Go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to say, I think 60 is the magic number.
You think we need 60 to get in?
60 will make me feel a whole lot better about it. 60 is the
Listen.
number I want to hear so that my mind can rest a little bit. Until I hear 60, I'm thinking the worst.
I think Sam is onto something because of what you said, Kuz. A lot of these teams are grandfathered in, so they're not going to go kicking teams out. I know people say kick this team out, kick that team. First of all, let me dispel the rumors. Vandy is going nowhere. They're grandfathered in. They were one of the founding members, and they raised what little SEC cares about academics. They have a great baseball program, and people in Nashville love football. So we definitely not giving up that market. So, like you said, Kuz, y'all are definitely a top 40 program, but you won't be battling like from ground zero. You're battling not the Vandys, not the Missouris, not the Rutgers, because they're already in. You're battling, who else is trying to get in. And I'm with you. I think it's going to be more of a 48 team thing. And that's where you kind of like, God, man, we better than Boston College, but Boston College, you know what I'm saying? It's like, but then it's like, what does the Big Ten want? Do they want
They're in Boston
College?
That's all. That's what it boils. Unfortunately, college football is at a point right now to where they only care because the networks are making the decisions. They only care about big cities. Exactly. They want to be in every large market in the country. Period.
Exactly.
Or the SEC. I mean, obviously, I know the SEC's got small markets, but it's the SEC. It's different there, right?
Yeah.
But other than your big blue blood programs, they want the blue bloods and they want all the big cities. That's what they want, I think.
Well, and for ESPN, because I think what you're going to see is a shift where ESPN is going to handle college football 100% of the football you want to watch. They're going to handle it 100%. They're going to be the people that make the contracts. All these market, NBC, ABC, all of them, they're going to be out. They're going to handle tier 2 contracts. So West Virginia games will still be on, but it's going to be regional, if they don't make it. And I think you're going to see ESPN completely move away from the NFL and totally focus on college football. It wouldn't surprise me if ESPN quit reporting on NFL football. I think they've figured out college is where the money's at.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. It's $1 billion business, college football. Kuz, I'm sorry, I saw a comment sound something like what you said about if West Virginia gets left out, you'd be heartbroken. Comment from Simon2077. He said, he said if K-State gets left out, he's done. Don't be done, Simon. They still would be playing football, just not at the tier 1. Maybe. But we don't know.
That's the risk you take. Fans won't be as interested.
Yeah. I think that hurts. I think that hurts the school more than it hurts, ESPN. Or because a lot of these programs, as we all know, some of the lower level, non-televised sports, they live off of the football revenue, and a lot of that revenue for the teams like Kansas, it comes from basketball, but let's not be crazy. The Big 12 still gives them more football money than they make basketball money. So if they're not in the big network TV packages because they're not in the tier 1, now you might not have volleyball at Kansas or whatever the sport it is. And like you said, now football, they're like, man, I don't really want to watch tier 2 football. Like, what is that? So now you're losing donations. Some people just donate to their favorite school or their alumnus alma mater because they want the football team to be better. Right. And then I don't know, man. It's crazy out here.
But go ahead, Sam. Well, I was just going to say, the football fan, the college football fan. I mean, how many times have you found yourself on late Saturday night watching two teams you've never even heard of play college football? We all do it. We all do it. And that's the thing. So to say that, like, if West Virginia didn't make it, the fans would lose interest, that's not necessarily accurate. They may lose national recognition and national coverage, but regionally, they're still going to be exactly what they were. Their schedules are just going to look very, very different. And then you also can't rule out the idea that Notre Dame stays independent and some of these major, bigger schools that don't make that 40 stay independent and schedule within those two major conferences as well. I mean, they may not get a shot at a national championship, but let's be honest, half of them aren't competing for it anyway.
Right.
99% of them aren't competing for it anyway.
Right. Tyler Mott says, what happens to schools like Northwestern and Vanderbilt? Do they get kicked out and replaced eventually? I don't think so, because like we talked, those schools, even though they suck, well, and actually Northwestern's actually recruiting really well right now, which is a whole nother discussion.
I can speak for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt ain't going nowhere, Taylor. They're in the SEC. They're literally grandfather claused in. Like, they're a founding member of the SEC. They're not. Everybody in the SEC loves Vandy, not just because it's a good win, but again, the Nashville market. They're not going to give up the Nashville market, and Vandy may be one of the better road trips you could ever go on because of the city of Nashville.
Yeah,
I go every other year when Georgia goes.
And back to the academic thing. I know nobody football fans for some reason, and I'm guilty of this at times too. But I've talked to you guys know who Tony Altimore is. He's been on several different shows, and he puts together all these graphs and data about realignment, shows how schools fit in each conference and this type of thing. And he graduated from USC, and he studied all this stuff, man. And he'll tell you right now, we can say academics don't matter, but when you're talking to university presidents who are making these decisions, it matters. These are colleges. They care about academics. That's what they're there for. And Stanford, and I'm sure Vanderbilt's in the same deal. They make billions of dollars from academic money alone, from donations and endowments. The conference doesn't want to let that go. Because it's not, even though they're in a conference is more than just sports. There are academic pieces involved in that, and we have a hard time as fans thinking about that because all we care about is football.
Yep.
But Vanderbilt brings a lot of value to the SEC other than football.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. They do. It's not just academic. Like, Vanderbilt is one of the better, if not better, the best baseball team outside of this year. Tennessee was the best SEC team. So to say, Ole Miss won the championship, but Vanderbilt always is consistently good in baseball. Consistently, like you say, it's academics. It's a lot of stuff. Again, being a founding member. So one of your comments helped you out. Missouri's Power 5 school. That's the only Power 5 in the state.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But just think about this. You could have a college football on the national scene. You could have schools like West Virginia, Baylor, Kansas State. I don't know, just name one.
Oklahoma State,
Tech, Oklahoma
TCU,
State,
TCU, Louisville.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some good teams that could be on the outside looking in.
Wake Forest, Boston College, North Carolina State, that might not get included in the quote-unquote big boy club. That's baffling to me, man. We are the 15th winningest program of all time, and we might not be included.
That's crazy.
It's nuts. Iowa State's another one. And it's all because we are the state of West Virginia and we don't have a high population. It's that simple.
Well, I think what it really comes down to is the haves and the have-nots, and the haves are calling the shots. When if they could have just all come together and sat down and talked about how to work together to get this where they want it to be.
Yeah.
That they could have really come up with a system that was fair and equitable for all of them at the same. They really could have, because it's actually, if you look at the way the ACC structured their schedules for, I think it's the 2023 season, that 3-5-5 thing.
Yeah.
You have 4 conferences with 14 teams apiece doing that 3-5-5 thing. You include 56 teams. You're not really kicking too many teams out. You take the top 12 teams out of each of the 4 conferences. The top 4 teams get a bye. Bottom 8 teams play, and then 4-4-2-2 national championship. And I think that would have been, me personally, that would have been the most exciting thing they could have ever done. But what's fair and what's equitable is not always what happens.
Exactly. Stickman says SEC academics are low key. Florida has national leading programs. South Carolina's 31 International Business School. Last I checked, in the country. Last I checked, academics are just more low key. Yeah, the SEC does have some good. I mean, I actually got it in front of me right here.
Actually,
Florida,
like you say, it's not the Big Ten. Let's not mistake ourselves. But it is. I'm like Stickman. We just don't. I ain't gonna say they don't care. They do care. They just don't advertise it because in the South people care about football. So
it's like Tony. I heard Tony Altamore the other day talk about it on a show. He said every college, every school has their own way. For example, Notre Dame has partially become who they are because of football. They made money because of football. Alabama's actually improving their academics.
you do.
But they have because of the image their football has given them. They're making money off of football, but they can use that money for other things.
And you attract more enrollment as well. So the elite programs are getting to the point where they can't, like, they're turning down a lot of people because even some of those smarter people like that might still like football. They get attracted. Like if Alabama's bad, nobody wants to go to the state of Alabama if you don't live there. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah,
football's good. So you're like, hey man, they got a pretty decent, education. Let me go here. And then after that happens so often, I mean, so much. And now you got a good program. You got good academics. So, I mean, when it comes to like public schools, I mean, Clemson. You talking about Southern football? Clemson is good. Florida's good. Georgia's good. But they're not advertising that stuff. You know what I'm saying? They advertising national championships.
Right. So it's just a different way of building it. Some schools will build their brand through academics. Some will build it through football. It just depends on. It doesn't mean academics doesn't matter to them. It's just they have a different way of focus or of raising the money to improve the academics, so to speak. I mean, just a different strategy to build their school and their brand.
Because
there was a really sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was going to say there was a really good comment from Mike King at 9:51 p.m.
Okay, let me look at it, and then I'll go back to this one. I thought that was funny. Mike King. Too many. There we go. Oh, I had it and I lost it.
Ooh, good comment.
All right, here we go. West Virginia has to overcome political prejudice, which has been going on for years.
Yep, that's a big thing in this state. I'm assuming what he's talking about is just the way the West Virginia academics has been viewed. I think that's what he's talking about because it's almost turned political several times with our governors wanting to intervene and all of that. I'd like for him to actually explain that to make sure that I'm thinking of what he's talking about. But if he is, I mean, it's a really good comment because West Virginia is kind of a misnomer when it comes to what I think he's talking about.
Yeah, I would like for him to. I was going to say I'd like for him to elaborate on that because I want to get before I comment. I want to know exactly what he because there's a lot of different ways you could take that comment.
Yeah, I mean, if he's talking about the West Virginia administration and what I've always felt like is a good old boys club, like if that's what he's talking about, he's spot on.
And I have heard I've had people send me private messages that have seen my videos and stuff, and people I don't really know, so I don't know how true this stuff is. But I've had people send me private messages and say, like, look, I know people who work there, and I know this and that, and I'm a boost, I'm a donor, and that, yada yada, and they'll say like, it's a mess. They don't, it's good old boys network, like you said. I've heard it said. I've heard people tell me that before, and those people don't really care about what's best for West Virginia. They only want to care about themselves. And, I've heard those kind of comments from people before. So there could be something to that.
Because I never did understand why Governor Justice, our governor's Jim Justice, he's a billionaire, has reached out to West Virginia to try to help them broker a little bit, depending on how this thing starts shaking out. And they've just kind of turned him down. And it's like, how many billionaires we got in this state that's willing to I think, put his money where his mouth is and help, make something happen. And it just, it makes sense what he's saying. If that's what he's talking about, that's a very good comment.
Yeah. I'm waiting for him to see if he elaborates down here in the bottom somewhere. But if he does, y'all remind me because I can't keep up with him.
Yeah,
myself. But yeah, I mean, I've always wondered that. And I heard. See, I don't know if y'all know this, but we were that close to having Jimbo Fisher as our head coach. He had his back. I know a guy who's really close friends with Jimbo. I know him personally because Jimbo's from West Virginia, as you know, probably know, Coach. But he had agreed to a $5 million deal to be our coach before he went to A&M.
That money.
I think it may have been during one of Dana's contract deals. I don't remember the timing exactly, but and it may have even been before Dana. I don't know. But long story short, he was getting ready to leave to come to West Virginia to finalize the deal, and somebody high up the ladder, I guess a booster or somebody, said, "We're not giving him $5 million. We're only giving him $4 million." So Jimbo basically said, "Screw you. I'm not coming." So think about it. We could have had Jimbo Fisher instead of Dana Holgerson.
Well,
I mean, and I ain't saying, I don't know how great of a coach Jimbo Fisher is.
I was just about to ask you that. Like, I'm not saying that he's not because, I mean, he has a national championship. I have to respect that. But he did have Jameis Winston. And regardless of what Jameis Winston's done in the pros, he's one of the best ACC quarterbacks to ever play. But he's had more resources and more money at A&M, and he hasn't really. Yeah,
I mean he's a great recruiter. You can't argue that. Some of that could be, but some of that could be because of the resources.
Is he? I'm just asking. Before NIL, the years that he was at Texas A&M, he only had 7 total. I mean, he only had 4 total 5 stars. NIL hits, he gets 7. Yeah. NIL hits, he gets 7. So I think he's a decent recruiter, but I think he's got a lot of backing.
Yeah. Well, and to that comment,
God, did you have to bring that here, dude? Really?
I don't even know. I know it's a super chat. Do I have to enter super chats?
Yeah, put it up there. Just put it up there.
Yeah, you said it. Well, y'all got to tell me what that's a reference to.
2007, West Virginia's number 2 in the country. We win, we go to the national championship. Pitt is 3-8, I think, something like that. We were 28-point favorites to win the game.
Yep.
God, I hate it.
They beat us 13-9.
Look at John.
That's the best. That's the best $2 he's ever spent.
and the thing is, that's the only thing Pitt fans have to talk crap to us about, and they never stop. It happened almost 20 years ago, but yet they still bring. And it don't even bother me anymore. But yet they still got to throw it out there.
Listen, man, as fans, we remember everything, especially when it's something like that.
But John Waffle, thanks for the super chat, man. Regardless of what you said, I guess I got to say it. Remember 13-9.
We will never forget. Never forget.
Oh, trust me, we won't. But I'm not crying about it anymore.
Oh.
But now I got to put this one up. From Steve Torman.
John Waffle tried to get Pitt on the map. He got another super chat for you.
We have not. John Waffle again. Hey, bro, I tell you, if you're going to keep paying me, keep talking smack, brother. Jing-a-ling-a-ling.
I told you, boy, Pitt fans show up on YouTube, boy.
They do, man. They do. Me and John, me and him, between him and Talk is Pitt, we talk more crap on Twitter to each other.
Oh, man.
But hopefully I think it's all out of good fun. At least it is on my end. We have 9 national championships. Yeah, but they were before World War I, weren't they? Do they even count? We're 3-0 in BCS bowl games.
Leatherneck days.
We're 3-0 in BCS bowl games. What's Pitt's record in BCS bowl games? Oh, that's right. They never went to one. All right.
Oh.
Here's a comment about Jimbo. Jimbo Fisher was an excellent recruiter at Florida State. Always had top 3 classes in the nation.
Well, he was an excellent recruiter. I will give you that at certain positions, like their offensive line was always trash, even the year they won the national championship.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, he hasn't done anything at Texas A&M, and the last 2 years at Florida State, he wasn't a great recruiter.
Yeah, he won his national championship. If I'm not mistaken, he still had Bobby Bowden's players, didn't he? For the most part,
he did. But he was on staff, so I can give him credit.
Yeah.
For some of those recruits, though.
Yeah. Tim Oliver says Pitt has 9 titles in air hockey.
Oh God. Oh, there they go. They're going at it now.
Oh man, that's funny.
So Pitt and West Virginia, y'all big rivals?
Oh God, yeah. We hate each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hateful rivalry. Like you got West Virginia and Virginia Tech. It's a little more of a tame rivalry. West Virginia and Pitt there's a lot of hate there. Just a lot of trolling, despise there.
Sean Esquire says, fellas, do you think a network like CBS Sports might entice WVU and other major programs, not in the Big 12, Big 10 SEC rather, to form another super conference? This, of course, would include Notre Dame. That's what I'm thinking, Sean. I'm actually glad you brought that up because I meant to mention that earlier. Here's what I would kind of – if you get to Big 10, it gets 20 to 24 teams, whatever they decide on. You get to Big 10 SEC or Big 10 SEC both get 20 to 24 teams. If all those other teams forming their own separate conference, yes, they're not going to be the big brands, but I still think they would carry some weight.
Well, if CBS Sports wants to stay in college football, that would be a great idea because after 2024, they lose the SEC, which is the cash cow, because they're going full-time ESPN for the SEC. So that might be a good point.
Yeah, and here's something I want to throw out, and I've taken up an hour and a half of your all's time tonight, but one more quick thing I need to bring. I feel like this is worthy of the conversation. Is the Big 12's new commissioner? That guy, first of all, he might regret taking the job. I mean, my God, look what he's walking into. But from what I've heard about this guy, I was listening to Gordon Gee in an interview. You know, he's West Virginia's president, and he said he had a conversation with, he wouldn't say who, but he said a network executive or somebody at a network, which I'm glad Gordon Gee's talking to network people, by the way. I think that's a good sign. But anyway, he said that they said he's probably one of the top 5 businessmen in sports, in his opinion.
Okay. I've heard that. I've heard the dude. What's his name? Yormark.
Brett Yormark.
I've heard that. I've heard people like out west describe him as like he's a savage, just an absolute business savage. He's a killer, is what they've said. Like he is got that kind of mentality. I think he could be the kind of mentality that it takes for the Big 12 to actually maybe survive. So that has to be a home run hire for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think and another thing too, when he was hired, the CEO of Fox Sports put out a statement saying how good of a hire it was and how much he would help the Big 12. So I think that's a great sign that you've got these TV executives who are who he has relationships with and who respect him. I think that's going to be. I mean, it couldn't come at a better time, in my opinion, for the Big 12 to have somebody like that as their commissioner, because we're going to need somebody who. And they say he's a deal maker too. They said he's just an absolute deal maker. So, we're going to need him, man.
Yeah, the TV money is where it's at. You can't get no TV money. I don't know how good the conference is going to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so hopefully he can. But listen, guys, I'll let you guys go. We've been on here an hour and a half. I hope I didn't take up too much of your night. But once again, Sam, I'll start with you. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, guys, look me up at 304 podcast on YouTube. We do all kinds of content. Me and usually my buddy Marcus Dean. We cover a little bit of everything, whatever kind of strikes us.
Go ahead, Coach.
Man, you covered me up with.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it was a $20 super chat, so yeah.
I'll address that after you talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's Coach Out, man, with the Fan Addict. We talking college sports all the time, mostly just football. During basketball season, we get to a little March Madness and things of that nature. During the season, weekly, I have a show with the former Dogs that played with Kirby Smart. So go out and subscribe. It's The Fan Addict on YouTube. And then if you see the scrolling ticker across the bottom, IG and Twitter is Fan Addict Sports.
Awesome. Thank you. Everybody go subscribe to both of these channels, please. Now I'll address the super chat. Is that okay? Sorry about that, Coach. That was rude of me, man. I didn't mean. I wasn't
good,
even,
man. You're good.
Big Dan T, thanks again for the $20 super chat, brother. It's much appreciated, man. Really is. Much love to you. It says, if Major Harris and Pat White played for UG, etc., there would be statues of them at the state capitol. As a former player, I get the love from our home, but elsewhere we do not get any respect. And eat blank pit and VT. I'm gonna go ahead. I don't think YouTube will dock me. Will they demonetize me for saying that word?
No,
they won't.
Eat shit pit and VT.
I mean he's got a really good point there. You know, I think about Oklahoma built a statue for Baker Mayfield this past year, and you know, where's our statues for Major Harris and Pat White at? You know, like
they don't do statues in West Virginia for whatever reason.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about, man. Y'all got to get more into football, man. Football people get remembered at the Southern schools, dog. That's how important it is. Like Peyton Manning has his own street. You know what I'm saying? Things like that.
Well, I mean, Major Harris. You know who Major Harris is, Coach?
Yeah, he was a quarterback, wasn't he?
Yeah, led us to a national championship game.
Yeah.
One of the greatest college quarterbacks ever, probably. You could argue. He just got his number retired last year.
I mean, he was the first.
Almost 30 years later.
I mean, he's like the first dual threat quarterback really ever. Like, no, I mean, he was one. Nobody'd seen anything like that at the time, and you know, it's criminal. Like, if you really think about it, you know, think about the guys that we grew up watching that embody that West Virginia mentality. Yeah, they don't bring them on as coaches or anything. You know, just Pat White's coaching down at Campbell University. The Go Humps, the Camels. You know, I mean, it just they need to put them on the payroll. Get those guys up there. You know, get them.
When Dan Holgerson was coaching, he wouldn't even let them on the sidelines in games, man.
Right.
Are you serious?
No. Yeah. I was interviewing Eugene Napoleon. He's a former player that played on the '88 national championship team. And I asked him I asked him about that. I said, what can you tell me about, because I'd heard rumblings that players didn't feel welcome at West Virginia, old former players and stuff. And some of them said they hadn't been back. And I asked him about that. And he said, here's the only thing I can tell you. He says, when you feel like you've helped build a program and you were part of the heritage of that program and, the foundation, they could at least give you a T-shirt.
So I'm glad you said that. Like,
that's what I mean. That's
of course. Georgia players always come back. Mark Ritt was big on that. Kirby Smart's big on that. Kirby Smart even periodically sends a Georgia care box to the NFL players periodically during the football season. Like, they'll just send it and then they'll post it on Twitter and they'll take it out. It's a whole bunch of like paraphernalia and stuff like that to keep them, and they're always welcome back. Like, I just can't see why you wouldn't do that.
Well, Neil Brown does. Neil Brown has completely shifted. That was one of the first things he did when he started coaching.
Okay.
He got on a Zoom call because it was during COVID. COVID hit not long after he started, so he got on a Zoom call, and he got like a bunch of the old former players on this Zoom call and invited them on it and talked to them and pick their brain and stuff and just let them be a part of it. And now, I mean, I've seen Pac-Man Jones on the sidelines. Pat McAfee, I think, has come back for the first time in years.
That's how you recruit.
White's coming back now. Stedman Bailey's coming back. I mean, these guys are finally coming back.
That's what I'm saying. It's like y'all have had great receivers and some quarterbacks. Like, you get these guys on the sideline during the recruiting visit for the weekend, and they get to be near stars.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all kids at one point in time. I mean, if Georgia wants a running back, when we got Kendall Milton, we used Todd Gurley. Kendall Milton's from California. Todd Gurley was playing for the Rams at the time when they were in LA. So we just was like, all right, Todd, go holler at him, dog. Like,
yeah, he has old players come back and speak to the team. Like during spring, he had before the spring game, Will Greer came back and spoke to the team. A couple other guys came back. So
you got to do that. I went to my nephew's getting recruited right now. Shout out, if I can, Coach Coos. My nephew, Mazio Bennett Jr., the number 1 wide receiver in the state of South Carolina and class of 2024.
Awesome.
So we went on a visit to Miami, and when I tell you everybody was there outside of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed actually was around. He just wasn't at the school on Saturday. He was there on Friday. Like, everybody was there, man. I got to meet a lot of people.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So you got to do that, man, in this day and age. So good for Neil. Good for Neil.
Yeah, Neil Brown is doing everything right. He just is not winning enough right now. If he can start winning, if Neil Brown can turn the program around and start winning again, he could end up being one of the most beloved coaches. I don't know if he'll ever surpass Don Nehlen, but he'd be darn close. So he just got to get the results on the field. He's doing everything else right. You just got to get the results on the field.
Okay.
But Tim Oliver here, I'm going to hit this real quick. Says, oops. Oh, let me see what he said real quick. Mazio is going to be Garnett and Black. We'll fight the dogs for that one.
Hey man, you might be right, Stick man. I don't know. I listen. My nephew, I ain't got no say so in it. Hey, you might be right. He does like South Carolina a lot, but I think he's open right now. But he does really like South Carolina a lot.
And Tim Oliver says 3 or 4 podcasts will interview him. Would you? That's.
Oh
Sam,
yeah.
Tim
That's something.
Tim is Sam's broadcast partner, by the way.
Yeah, me and Tim focus more. We get kids that are being recruited on, and we bring them on and let them talk about the recruiting process. And
he got the WVU offer.
We don't affiliate with any schools. It's just we like the kids to talk about their experiences, what they think, what they're thinking. Like it's a feel good thing for the kids to come on and just talk about what their experience is. That way, if another kid's going through it and they don't know what it looks like, they can watch the podcast that me and Tim does and kind of get an idea of what to expect, what it's going to be like, and how they're making up their decisions about where they're going. So it's not based on any school or anything. We've had kids that are going to Virginia Tech and really all over the place. So
shout out to my nephew. He just got an Alabama offer this week.
Awesome,
that's awesome.
Yeah. These guys do great interviews. I've listened to several interviews. They ask awesome questions. I mean, they really ask really cool questions. Questions that you don't normally hear on an interview like that. I think it's interesting. But anyway, listen, we got to roll, guys. We all got lives here. I'm taking up everybody's time. I appreciate all the support. Appreciate the super chats. All the interactions on here, all the comments. Also appreciate Sam and Coach for coming on.
Can I get one more thing, Coos?
What's that?
Can I get one more thing?
Yes, sir.
Stickman says Kirby will call you to recruit now, fam. You can't be Mazio uncle and not get that call. Hey, Stickman, you might be happy that I don't have that call because I'm a UGA alum, man. Nah, man. Hey, respect to South Carolina, man. South Carolina showed my nephew lots of love.
Beamer's doing a great job there, man.
He really is, man. He is.
But listen, everybody go subscribe to 304 Podcast and 304 Podcast and the Fan Addict on YouTube. Check out their work. They do good work. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I got to do it. Q Country Roads.